Your skin is telling a story. Every single spot, every freckle, every mole. It's like a word on a page. It's a living record of the sun you've been in, your family history, and what's going on inside your body right at this very moment.
So, let's actually dive into that. We're going to learn how to read that unique story written right on your skin. We'll decode everything from those common spots you see all the time to some really important warning signs you need to know.
First up, let's talk about a really common chapter in a lot of people's skin stories: melasma. You probably know it better as sunspots, or sometimes the mask of pregnancy.
So, what is it exactly? Well, technically, it's a pigmentation issue that can keep coming back. It's basically your skin's pigment-making cells, they're called melanocytes, just going into overdrive and pumping out too much melanin in certain spots. And what causes this? Well, we don't know the exact cause down to the letter. Researchers have pointed to a few key culprits. Sun exposure, that's the undisputed #1 trigger, which is why we call them sunspots. But as you can see, things like hormones, your genes, and even some types of cosmetics and medicines can play a pretty big role too. What's so cool about this is how it simplifies a really complex process. Think of it like this. The sun's UV rays are sending a direct message to your skin's pigment factories, the melanocytes. And that message is basically, work overtime, make more pigment. The result of all that extra work? Those darker patches we see as melasma.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little. We've talked about those bigger patches of melasma, but what about the smaller, more defined spots that pretty much all of us have? Yep, I'm talking about moles, or as they're known in the medical world, nevi.
The first thing to get is that moles basically fall into two main camps. You've got congenital moles, those are the ones you're born with or that pop up in your first year. And then there are acquired moles, which are way more common and tend to show up throughout your childhood and teenage years. And this chart just lays out the differences so clearly. Your typical harmless mole is pretty symmetrical with a nice clean border. But look at the description for an atypical nevus. Asymmetrical, weird edges, a mix of colors. These are the ones you want to watch because they can be a precursor to melanoma and definitely need a closer eye. And that brings us to, honestly, the most critical part of this whole guide, learning to spot the signs of melanoma, which is the most serious form of skin cancer.
So let's be super clear, melanoma is serious. As the source material says, it's the most malignant skin tumor. It actually grows from the very same cells, those melanocytes that give our skin its color. And the key thing is, if it's not caught early, it can spread really fast.
So who's at a higher risk? Well, the research is pretty clear on this. A lot of intense sun exposure, especially those really bad blistering sunburns when you were a kid, that's a huge factor. But your personal history and genetics also play a massive role. Things like having a ton of moles, a family history of melanoma, or having some of those atypical moles we just looked at. Now look at this number. It represents the risk of any single mole turning into melanoma in a year. It's incredibly small, right? But, and this is so important, the real risk isn't about one specific mole going bad. The takeaway is that having lots of moles, say over 50, is a sign that you have a greater overall risk of developing melanoma somewhere on your body. It might not even come from a mole at all. So what can you actually do about it? How can you be proactive? This is the empowering part. We're not just here to list the risks, we're giving you a simple, super effective tool you can use to monitor your own skin. It's a really easy memory trick that dermatologists use all the time, and it's something anyone can learn and do at home. It's called the ABCDE rule. Okay, let's walk through it. A is for asymmetry. Imagine drawing a line down the middle, the two halves just don't match. B is for border. You're looking for edges that are uneven, maybe a little jagged or blurry, not smooth. C is for color. A big warning sign is seeing multiple different colors in one spot. D is from diameter. Anything bigger than a pencil eraser, about 6 millimeters, is worth a look. And finally, and this one is so important, E is for evolution. Has the mole changed at all, in size, shape, color, anything? If a spot on your skin checks any of these boxes, it's time to see a dermatologist. And you know what makes this even more effective? Using a body map, just like the one you see here. It might sound like a little extra work, but taking a few minutes to jot down where your spots are, maybe even snapping a few photos, helps you track them over time. It makes it so much easier to spot any changes, that critical E for evolution. So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, with this knowledge, you're no longer just a passive observer of your own skin. You become its guardian. You are the absolute first line of defense. This ribbon from the Turkish Dermatology Association, it just says it all, doesn't it?
The message couldn't be any clearer, and it's really the heart of everything we've talked about. The things you just learned, like that ABCDE check, are genuinely life-saving skills.
So take a moment, sometime today, just take a look. Get to know your skin's unique landscape. Because when it comes to your own health, the story your skin is telling is one you really can't afford to ignore.